So every week at Business at Breakfast, one of the members gets the opportunity to share with the group a little bit about themselves. So they get pulled out of the crowd with literally no warning in advance. And I give them a couple of ways to speak, and then they just hopefully follow some instructions and get a heap of questions. So let's go. This week we have the wonderful Tommy Tong. In case you just couldn't work out, that's why I needed to know if his sound was working. You were going to be in last week, and when your sound didn't work properly, I'm going, oh no, I've got to find someone else. But you were too low down in the list for me to realize that it wasn't going to work. So excellent. Tommy, so I know that you've spoken at Business at Breakfast before, but according to my schedule, not this year. So you've managed to sort of miss that. So
It's the
your
early part
time
of the year.
is up. Yeah, so your time is up.
I was
So
waiting for the solstice to happen.
yeah, that's exactly how it is. I've been watching out going, and then going through the list. So Tommy, here's what I want you to do. I want you to give us your elevator pitch again, this one with no timer, and then give us the history of how you came about selling that thing. So whatever you say for your elevator pitch, the thing that you're selling, tell us how you came about selling it or why you believe in it so much that you've now ended up helping all these other people with this thing that you talk about. So there you go. Have at it.
All right. Thank you much. Again, I am in Northern California, but I help people across the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico, and we are branching out to other countries as well. So, and I provide living insurance with FinFit Life, and that's life insurance company that focuses on financial fitness, physical fitness, and a lifetime to enjoy both. Because when you have one or the other, it just doesn't quite work out. So when you have both, that's when things work together. So and the life insurance policies I love to provide the income to you if you get diagnosed with heart attack, stroke, or cancer. They're not waiting for that alternative to happen. And long-term care is also included in those as well, some of them. And then this Vitality program gives you a discount in the cost of the insurance for just doing healthy behaviors. So it's like your airline miles cards where it's gaining points. So the higher the points, the higher the tier and the higher the discount. So up to 25%. They provide the Fitbit or iWatch to you and give you a bunch of opportunities. Well, I guess one thing is early detection. So Gallery gives you a blood test to check your blood for cancer markers. It may determine that you have cancer, and it'll tell you where in your body you have it, or at least the most likely point of it. And the other one is a body scan. So again, for me, good referral partners are those who are in the fitness world. So those who are martial arts teachers, Pilates teachers, and coaches. So for living insurance you can use while you're alive, can't go wrong with Tommy Tong.
Okay, so Tommy, how did you get into this?
So I got into life insurance because I have a family of four kids, and we said, hey, my wife and I said we better get protected. So we got something back in I want to say the late 90s called a variable universal life insurance, and that is tied to the stock market. So we were plugging away and funding it as best we could. Then in 2008 is 9, 10, 11 is when the market crashed, and when the insurance is tied to the stock market, then the amount of money we had in that policy also dropped as well. So was not happy with that. The insurance company we were with, thankfully they said, hey, we are not going to ask you to super fund your insurance policy because you're now, we call it over leveraged, right? So because the market dropped, the amount of funds I had in there wasn't enough to cover my life insurance if I was to actually pass during that time. So they said, we're not going to ask you for the funds over a certain amount of years. So thankfully the market did pick up after some time, and we were able to not worry about that. 2016 came around, and the life insurance company changed and started something called the IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance, and that's where the money is not in the stock market. So because he knew that I had this VUL and was stressed over it, my friend He said, "Hey, would you want to convert it?" So I picked his brain for months and months, and actually, other managers that brought me in. But eventually, he said, "Hey, you've plugged our brain so much with this, and as an engineers in med device," he said, "Yeah, you could probably sell this." So I said, "Let me give it a try," and it stuck. So that's what I'm doing now.
Wow, there you go. So you get to say that you save people's lives. You're a bit like Debbie Miller. You save people's lives every day. Um, I know I didn't really understand personal insurances or anything like that until, well, I didn't know of it really until I joined BNI, what, 12 years ago or something. And then we had an a financial planner who did personal insurances inside my chapter. And his elevator pitch every week was, this week was the best week of my life, and it was the worst week of my life. It was the worst week of my life because found out that one of my clients, the husband, is dying of cancer and it's not reversible. And best week of my life because I was able to hand them a $600,000 insurance check because they had their insurances in place and up to date. And that was pretty much his pitch every week for a year. And then I finally found someone who was dying of cancer. And so I went to Luke and I said, I found you the perfect client. She's in hospital right now, dying of cancer, no chance of survival. How do I tell her to talk to you? And he said, you can't. Well, why not? And he said, I need her before she's diagnosed with cancer. Well, how do I find that person? He goes, well, he said, that's the big problem that I have with getting clients. And I've gone, so you've been running your pitch wrong for a year. For a year, I've been looking for a dying person and I finally found one. But now you're telling me they weren't allowed to be dying in the first place? So he had to rethink how he said it. And so his pitch changed to that he does insurance for uh, dads that have a mortgage and play football on the weekend. So if anyone knows anything about Australian football, like it's fairly rough with no padding, right? So it's just 100% tackles, no padding
Like
at all.
rugby, right?
Yeah, rugby and rugby league. So you've got both of them right there. And so he explained that, if you play weekend football, there's probably insurance with the company, like with the sport group that you're with, but it may not be enough insurance that can last, let's say, dad being in hospital with a broken femur for over 12 weeks, not earning any money. And then that had me understand more what this personal insurance was all about. And then I ended up with personal insurance, all because the story became better. So I've seen you around for years and years based off HMP. And so I get it, what it is that you do based off having to drill this other guy until I finally understood as well. But I have to say, like having personal insurance, things for me, my mum was talking to me the other day and was saying, well, you don't want this to happen and you don't want to end up in a wheelchair and you don't want to do this and you don't want to do this and you don't want to do this. Or Simon has a sore arm, so he doesn't want. And I said, I don't know what Simon wants personally, but I do know that we have insurance, which means we don't have to stress about the little things about if we've done the wrong thing. I know getting a dog, who would think that getting a dog would then mean, like a puppy, a tiny puppy, would then mean that you'd crack 2 bones in your back? Never occurred to me. But how it happened was Terry was less than a year old, and in the middle of winter in Canberra at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I was taking him for a walk like I did every other day. And it had rained the day before, and it had iced over, and I stood on the steps and I slipped. And when I landed on the step, didn't hit anything, but my shoulders cracked down on my spine cracked down, and I cracked 2 bones in my back, C7 and C8. And all I could think of as I was crawling up the stairs thinking, I think I've done something really bad, was thank goodness I have insurance. If I end up in a wheelchair or with a broken back, I'm covered. And it's just an everyday occurrence. Could happen to anybody with anything, right? But I was covered, and I have to say the mental stress has gone away every time, you see someone with an injury, go, well, if that was me, I have insurance. So that's how I feel about insurance. I think it's like the lotto ticket. that's probably guaranteed to pay out in most instances. You just don't know when, right? Is there a time?
True.
Is there a time limit for insurance over in America? This insurance that you do is in like, once you're over 70 or 80, or it doesn't count anymore.
Yeah, I think it's getting to be because life expectancy has been extending, right?
Yeah,
My former job of medical device, we don't let you die. So
yeah,
so it's like immediate life insurance is not being used. But okay, so now you had a heart attack and you've survived through it. They give you stents or they bypass or whatever it was.
yeah,
My dad had pentuple bypass, so five chunks of veins
yeah.
rerouting. Um, but then the insurance company will pay you out, at
Mm,
least partial or some of the funds, because when you're ill with those illnesses, sometimes your income takes that illness.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, as you get older, the cost of the insurance becomes very prohibitive. If
Yeah.
you're in your 70s, I mean, insurance companies are going to stop somewhere around 70. Okay, we have a agent who was like 73 and got covered.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
probably around 75 is like the definitely no, not worth it, or not
That, yeah, they're sort of expecting life is going to take over the
the
next 40 years.
actuarial table is like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not gonna
Yeah.
work.
Okay. Fair enough.
But there's alternatives that we can
Yeah.
provide, which is the annuities. If you've got a chunk of funds that you're going to fund your life insurance with, let's put that into annuity, and then you can start drawing from it,
Yeah.
right? And use that in retirement.
Yep. Helen's got a question, but I've just got one more quickly. When someone
Sure.
signs up, do you like have a meeting with them once a year to see where they're at, to make sure their insurance is still correct? Or does it kind of like they get signed up and that's kind of it and with them now and they sort it out somewhere else? Or how does that work with you?
I would say for myself, I usually try and schedule a meeting with
Mhm.
them, put
Yep.
them on a calendar
Hmm.
and say, hey, it's been a year or so. And the life insurance policy that I got, the agent that got me that kind of showed me the ropes and said, every year he'd call, they would say, oh, you want more money or you want, another policy. And so I kind of was treating him pretty badly.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but with this FinFit Life side of things, we actually, we want to see how's your numbers, how's your health, are you
Yeah.
are you keeping in step? But yeah, that's typically what it would be. But unfortunately, a lot of insurance agents start the business and then they retire silently, and then that book of
Yeah.
business,
Right.
whoever they contacted, that's why you hear people, I got it from my cousin or so and so, and they've left the business and haven't heard from them since. So
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah,
probably the reason why.
I have an annual check-in with my guy. Like my thing indexes, so I go to pay more and then I say to him, I don't want to pay more, it's gonna be this. And then we have a meeting about that, and most of the time that's completely fine. But now I'm 48 and he says, so you're reaching that level where for women there's certain, it could be breast cancer, could be something like that. He said that tends to be, those are the markers now for that sort of timeline for you. So understand that if you don't go with the index, you may not be covered for, depending on like if you end up with an illness, which one it is, you may not be covered. And I've gone, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. I thought of in terms of, the boys are older, there's not as much schooling, so therefore you don't need as much money because they're going to be out in a job. But he said, no, it covers for other things as well. So yeah, I have an annual check-in. I think it's really important. Helen, you've got your hand up.
Yes, so Tommy, you mentioned something about a blood test that detects cancer and then a body scan. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, the Vitality program has, at least here in the US, Vitality program is kind of its own entity, but John Hancock Insurance Company teamed up with them. But Vitality has teamed up with Gallery to help kind of reduce the cost or provide it free, depending on the policy amount, a blood test that will you submit your sample, I guess you draw your sample or get it drawn and then submit it to them, and then they'll check it for markers of cancer. And when they talk about markers, that means they've kind of detected what pedigree of cancer it is, if there is anything. And then they can tell whether it's, in your organs, it's in your body, it's on your skin, what type of cancer it could be. So that's what Gallery is. And then there's another one called Pernuvo, which is the other company that does a body scan. Now there's other countries that offer, like if you go to Asian countries and they go, hey, do you want to have a CT scan or an ultrasound scan, whatever, you can go and pay for it and have that done, and it kind of baselines. I don't know if they'll give you the analysis and review of what's there, but and then sometimes it's a quick pass, or they may focus on in the organs is really probably where you want like a slower pass. If there's anything, you probably do the quick pass first. But those two tests that are offered for, we were calling it, early detection. So it's one of those things of, again, with our lifespans being longer, unfortunately, our bodies are still, degrading, and things will happen. So can you detect it? Can you catch it to where there can be some intervention, whether surgically or otherwise?
Okay,
So does that answer your question, Helen?
yeah. And so these things, the two that you mentioned, the Pronuvo and Gallery, they're only available in America. They're not available anywhere else, or can you have international people doing the tests?
Gallery is its own company,
Mm-hmm.
so you can look up Gallery on the web and see how much it's going to cost to get the test done.
Okay.
The tie-in to the Vitality program is that they give you a discount on it. If it's a $500,000 policy or higher, you get the Gallery test free. But under that, you're paying, I think, $1,000. But they used to, when we started, it was just the one test. I'm kind of like, well, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it's great if you happen to have cancer markers now at that time, it's great. But they have said, we're going to do annual testing. So they're ramping up their production, I guess, their ability to do the test again. It's like, oh, it's a repeat customer, right? Here's your annual check. And that's recommended. In my mind, from a device engineer, it's like, why would you only want to do one test, right? I most likely will have later in life something happen. And same with the scan. I think the body scan is only once. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I get it, I get a discount through Vitality, I'll take the scan, but I'll definitely be looking at other countries and go, hey, let's do a trip to to Philippines. My wife's from the Philippines, so we'll go there and say, hey, how much is it going to cost to do a scan, and get that checked. But they may change as well and say, yeah, let's allow people to come in and do a annual scan.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
But yeah, the technology is out there now to be able to start preventing, some of the illnesses, or at least to catch them while they're early. And one of our founders, John Irvin, he even though he's founder, he goes, he was resisting getting the Gallery test. It did turn out he had throat cancer. He's got a YouTube out there about it. Very compelling. But I would say that they caught it to where it's the 3/4 of the size of a dime, small, and his chance of it recurring is less than double digits. Had they caught it later, normally it's the size of a golf ball, the chance of reoccurrence is like 95%. It's going to come back in X amount of years.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah.
What's the average, and I know it depends, but I mean, let's just go with the average price of insurance in America, like life insurance in America. I know mine personally is, I think it's about $75 a month for
Okay. And
so what's the average for you guys?
Is that a whole life policy, or is that one that's
mine's life,
got a
TPD, so trauma, everything but like income protection. So I've got the trauma, the stuck in a wheelchair, the disease, the death.
Trauma, permanent disability, isn't
it?
Yeah,
the death,
disability. Yeah, this is long-term care or disability insurance.
Yeah.
That's typically life insurance is, at least for term, meaning like if it's 20 years, I'm just need to be covered until my kids get out of college or my house is paid off, et cetera, et cetera. Those are usually in that $75 range. If you got it quite a bit when you're quite a bit younger, right? So as you get older, obviously the cost of that type of insurance is going to be a bit higher, because the timeline for you, what they do is they average like your life expectancy, and they say, okay, how much is it going to cost for that payout? And again, that's a one-time payout for those. They do have the vitality program associated with the term policies. The other ones that I usually speak about, the VULs or the IULs, right, is a whole life policy, which is you're paying for it the whole life, but then at any point in your life, it's going to pay out. The other ones stop at that 20-year. They say, well, this is going to end. If everything went as your plans, your legacy plans wanted to happen, like,
Yeah.
what do I need it for, right? That was the thought. But if that happens, then you kind of say, oh, I don't need it. But although you may need it in that long-term care type of situation. So, but the cost, if you wanted to continue that 20-year term, it's astronomically like impossible to pay. It's like, oh yeah, now it's $20,000 for the next year. And you're like, what? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're
Well,
gonna,
you've just answered
it's
something
again,
that's
it's a $250,000 policy, let's say.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So you're only paying 20K here,
Yeah.
but family's gonna get a big,
Yeah.
multiplier.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Pat, you've got your
Pat,
hand
you
up.
have your hand up.
Yeah, no, you've got to be very careful with those start low and then increase of incrementally at terms, because we ended up with two sets of life insurance. One of them, it was within superannuation, but we'd had a pre-existing one which was attached to our mortgage, which was, seemed going fine. As we got older, we realized that one of them was steadily increasing, no stress. The other one, especially for my husband, because remember the men are more at risk as they get older, blah, 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 blah. His went astronomical. So, and the two comparative insurances, but one was here, steadily growing, and the other insurance company went through the roof, as you were saying, Tommy. So be very careful right at the beginning when you are being sucked into these offers, which ones in the later years are going to claim the money back. And you think you can afford it, but not necessarily when you're on a wind down.
That's what happened with mine. My original one was stepped, and then I ended up getting an indexed one. Left that guy, and then was with somebody else who could explain it all better. And then it was indexed, and because that happened. And mine's remarkably less than Simon's, even though I'm older than him. But I had mine from years earlier. And I think, Tommy, you've just now explained the difference is there's a certain amount you're going to pay. And so it's just sort of built out across those years, because Simon started much later. He's got, he's paying more now per year than if he had started years and years ago. What's your recommendation, Tommy, for how do you see it from your perspective? What's an age that you believe people should get insurance from?
I think I like to look at it as life changes. And I mean, if you're a singleton, right? I mean, that's one situation, right? Is almost, if you've got life insurance and you're a single person still, right? Some of it's like, well, I've kind of recommended that make sure you can fund your party, your celebration of life party, if that's what you want. Whatever your funeral is, otherwise you don't want to burden everyone else, and then just cancel your policy, right? If you have the funds. But if you don't, then that's what that policy will go towards, right? But when you have children, when you have a house, when you have these other assets, the liabilities, really,
that's where I'm
really
at too. You buy a house, you're going to get it. So if you're buying a house at 18 here in Australia,
a house, a spouse, and children,
that's it,
right?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I reckon too. A house, a spouse, and children. There you go. Those are the 3 checkpoints, depending on which.
But let me give you this other recommendation is sometimes they say, do you want it to grow or do you want it to stay fixed? So if you bought a $500,000 policy and you said, I want the money, the additional money that you're putting in to add up. So my family will get, let's say you put in for 10, 15 years, you get $600,000, right? Because you put in money. At about 54 to 57 or so, tell them, say, stop, I don't want it to grow anymore. Because then the cost of your insurance, especially on males more, is going to go higher than the amount you have in there. So it's a little bit of as you're filling the bucket, the insurance company only has to cover what's remaining. So if you don't fill the bucket enough, then the cost of that insurance that they have to cover is really high,
Mhm.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So yeah, at 50 something, just keep it level. There's increasing and level. So you call them and say, hey, I have this policy, I think it's increasing, or just want to make sure it's level, so
Yeah.
that it can stop, because every time you're having to pay for whatever the cash value is and that full $500,000 coverage.
Yeah.
If you have half of that in there, they're saying, oh, now I only have to cover Tom for 250, so they can reduce the cost of the insurance.
Mm. Yeah.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, it definitely gives us things to think about in regards to how we are. I generally think in the fatalistic way of, if I was sitting on a cloud tonight, or if I was, like if I drive now but it's dark, and things like that, in regards to how is that going to work for me and the rest of everyone else. Have to say again, having personal insurance makes it really easy to deliver pizzas on the day that it's raining, because I'm insured up to the eyeballs. So I mean, besides that, with Domino's, there's an insurance thing in regards to any accidents that might happen. I go, yeah, well, I'm completely covered. If anything happens to me, I'm so completely covered that I know the family is fine, all because I've decided to go out and sit in silence delivering pizzas to hungry people, a few hours a week.
Yeah.
Whereas ordinarily I would not drive in the rain. I used to as a, younger, but I wouldn't drive in the rain because, just wait for it to stop. What's such a big rush that you need that now? But if it becomes your, a job, then, you have to, weigh those things up. But it does make it easier for me to be able to do things like drive around. And I think as you get older, and as you get kids, and then as they get old, like when they're really little, you do everything like, can't do anything that's, injures us or anything. And
No
then,
skydiving for you, right?
yeah. And then as they get older, you think, oh, well, like it's all fine now. They're older and they're fine. And now I'm sort of at that stage of going, 5 more years, I could be a grandma, and then I get the grandbabies. So, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to not do dumb stuff? Watermelon skiing doesn't count. Just so that you know, that one doesn't count.
But you have to get fit for that, and I think that's
Mm,
fantastic. Kind of a segue into the fitness side.
yeah.
Is there's the Vitality is showing, like, oh, they've been doing it for decades now, and they said, yeah, it's extending at least 5 years. So what does 5 years mean to you? Does that mean, a wedding? Does that mean a grandchild? Does that mean a grandchild, getting out of diapers and walking and talking?
Mm.
So, if that 5 years means something in that, to your heart in there, just
Yeah.
go on,
We'll move on to great
go and work
grandchildren.
out, right?
Yeah, then
Whether
we'll
you
move
got a
on to
policy
great
or not.
grandchildren, and then there'll be more babies. Excellent. Well, thank you, Tommy. Thank you for being our speaker today. And thank you,
you.
audience, for participating in the conversation. I think you've given us a lot to think about. I always think it's a very important topic, life insurance and all your personal insurances, and to really look into that and see where that really sits in the world. With my family, my dad got cancer in 1980. If insurance was an option back then, like I don't know if it was or it wasn't in 1980, but like this. But I look at it and go, if we had it, life may not have been quite as difficult as what it was. And then my mum in 1984, when my dad got better, my mum got a work injury, and she'd slipped a disc in her neck, and couldn't lift anything for 20 years. And I just look at it and go, huh. Now, if she had personal insurance, waiting to go to the law, like for the lawyers, for it all to go through the court case 10 years later, we wouldn't have been as stressed if she had have had personal insurance. And again, I don't know if it existed back in 1984, but having said that, for the last 10 years, I've had personal insurance, and my mom and my dad both say, I don't understand why you have it, because there's a component inside your super, or America's terms 401k. And I'm gone, because it doesn't cover for what I want it to cover. And I know, because I've watched you and Dad suffer. I've watched my brother-in-law suffer. So my sister suffer with my brother-in-law on a knee. And I've gone, yeah, no, again, personal insurance, actually sitting down with someone and finding out exactly what you need to have for you in your life is such a better conversation than just allowing whatever snippet shows up in some of our, I don't know, superannuation things that shows up.